Hello, long time no see. Been gone a while. It's been a minute since I've done one of these, but this is going to be the grand return once again, for real this time. Um, Trying some new setup stuff here. I have some additional lighting. It's going to look a little funky, but you'll get used to it, I promise. So, what this video is going to be about is kind of just me going over some stuff I missed. It's been a hot minute since I made a video. I didn't forget about everyone. I didn't stop the metal stuff. I just, kind of got lazy. Life got in the way. But we're back here. I have the motivation once again. Found the spark. But I'm not going to talk about any super new stuff right now. I'm going to talk about some stuff um, stuff that really impacted me while I was gone. And then after this, I'm going to move on to new stuff once again, get to the end of the year lists. Um, I have five vinyl here to show you today. This is a smattering of an assortment of albums that really impacted me in one way or another. I don't have them in any particular order, but I guess I do have the last one saved for last. But I'm kind of just gonna get right into this. Hopefully, you didn't forget about me. Hopefully, this goes smoothly. But this first one I have here is of a band that I have literally their entire discography on CD and vinyl, essentially. This was one that kind of surprised me a lot because I didn't know where this band could really go, where they haven't gone before, that, would kind of give me a pause to be like, wow, this is almost like a new band. But this is Inquisition with Black Mass for a Mass Grave. So that came out in 2020. I think this monochrome version I have here came out either last year or this year. This is my new favorite Inquisition album. I don't know how these guys keep reinventing the wheel, but they do. They've kind of invented their own sound. They've always messed around with psychedelic kind of stuff, atmospheric stuff, obviously, but this album almost takes like I don't know if I want to say like a 180 on like the whole like black metal aggression. This is what comes with the monochrome version. There's also a picture disc of this, but I got the clear and gold. So this is like a really catchy album in a sense where like maybe Life Lover is catchy. Lots of like really moody, slightly depressing riffs accompany almost every song. Guys just looking, as metal as they can possibly be. What's more metal than a gun and a drum? Some of their best songs in their entire discography legitimately are on this album. It took me a little while to get kind of used to it. Like I said before, Bloodshed Across the Imperial Altar was my favorite, and I don't know if I'd say the Multiverse album was my favorite up until that point, but it just seems like they keep stepping it up and reinventing themselves and not getting in a rut, releasing the same album over and over again. Like, you can tell album to album how much they're growing. They're not afraid to really step outside the box. If you like old school black metal, you'll still like this. There's tons of, old school black metal riffs, and the drumming on this is very, I guess I'd say rudimentary. It's there for like a backup, more as like, a focus for like, tech death or other death metal. This is kind of just there to put like a constant noise on you where you can focus on the vocals, focus on the guitars. The vocals for sure far and away are his best performance on this album. He has, one of the most distinct vocal styles in all of metal. his signature frog style, but there's a lot more like force, a lot more exertion, um, I guess I'd say more technique on this album, whereas it's not like a flat baseline frog vocal the whole time. There's a lot of experimentation. It's pretty lengthy. Highly recommend. I can't say enough good things about this album. Just one of those where you kind of have to hear it. If I had to pick a song to check out, it would probably be Hymn to the Absolute Majesty of Darkness and Fire. That's probably my favorite song on the album. That's kind of where I get my like real like mid-era Life Lover riffs from. That song is just like mind-blowing. So this next album I have here is one where I've talked about this group of musicians. They have a bunch of different projects that the members flip-flop in and out of. But this is Voices with Breaking the Trauma Bond. Now, every Voices album is very, very different from each one. Not necessarily in a linear progression. It's almost like they just try whatever they want to feel like trying on a particular album. And this one has the most experimentation of any of them on it for sure. I swear to God, there's like 20 different musical genres on this album. There's not a whole lot of like black metal or death metal that they're like mostly known for, especially on their debut and on London. Frightened kind of started to get away from that. There's still a lot of songs on that album that are metal-y, I guess, but there's a lot of like punk, a lot of like, I don't know how to describe it, like hard rock, or like, I don't know if I want to say grunge, but there's lots of metal influences. There's kind of just songs where he's singing and there's not a whole lot of instrumentation. It's a very long album, has a lot of tracks. I would recommend this to just about everybody to at least try it, even if you don't like metal. I'll pull out the vinyl here. It might take a little bit to warm up to. I got the black and white or black and gray merge. Very, very nice. But yeah, this group, kind of flip-flops between Acricock and Voices and Antichrist Imperium. So a few members that rotate in and out of those. But highly recommend this one. It's hard to really describe this because there's so much going on, where you have almost like uplifting songs and depressing songs and more hardcore style songs. It's just go listen to it. Take my word on this one. I wouldn't put it in this comeback video if I didn't believe strongly in it. So yeah, that's Breaking the Trauma Bond by Voices. This next one is one that I listen to probably, I don't know, maybe like once or twice a week. It's just one that kind of gets me hype, and I don't know, this just does something for me that a bunch of other albums and bands just don't do for me anymore. But this is Ascites, or Ascites. I'm not entirely sure if there's a definitive answer on how to say it. But this is False Peace. I have listened to this a pretty unhealthy amount of times. If you don't know Ascites, they're kind of somewhere in between like death metal or brutal death metal and like hardcore, where it's not deathcore. It's definitely not deathcore. which I have nothing against because, you know, I'm wearing a Worm Shepherd shirt right now. But this is somewhere in between that, and it really rides the boundaries. Here's the vinyl color I got. I believe this is the first color pressing they did. I'll have to look. But there's some kind of just like pure vitriol and anger and just pissed offedness that really gets to me on this. There's songs on here that are 10, 15 minutes plus, which is always a bonus for me, especially when you're playing stuff this brutal and this heavy. I really adore the vocal style where it's kind of just like wretched spitting the whole time. You know, there's absolutely nothing you can understand on this album, and that's perfectly how I like it. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea. Highly recommend this. I've listened to this basically on repeat since it came out. I think it came out in 2020. Definitely one of my favorites of the last few years. It's brutal. It's very creative. There's almost like harsh noise elements on it with like the hardcore stuff that's going on. There's not a whole lot of like, you know, like ball crushing breakdowns, but there are like a couple breakdowns here and there that just like it really gets to you. And the Behemoth's Dance, the second to last song on this, it's like a 16-minute song. Mwah. Absolutely perfect. It reminds me a lot of The Prolonging by Triptykon, just like the way it starts and progresses. Highly recommend. Go check out Ascites. So this next one was my album of the year last year. I had absolutely no expectations for what this album was going to be. I wasn't honestly too super familiar with the band, but it's been a long time since an album surprised me this much. But this one, shit. There's a big poster in here I forgot about. Hold on. There's a bunch of crap in here because Nuclear War Now really went all out with this product. But this is the Divine Punishment by Antediluvian. If you don't know Antediluvian, the best way I can describe it is just absolutely batshit insane music. Not for everybody. This is definitely their most accessible album. The production is very good for, you know, a black death metal war metal album. But there's just something really psychedelic and almost trancy about this album. There's a bunch of songs on here where they have just like these long, drawn out percussive moments where like the guitars are just kind of twanging. It sounds like you're going through freaking wormhole, especially on the song Guardians of the Liminal. When I first heard that song, I just about crapped my pants because I had no idea that this band was capable of doing anything like that. There's, you know, it starts off just them blasting and growling and all kinds of crap, and then, you know, some strings and some horns come in, and it's just like flashing lights, and it's just an incredible experience. Put on some headphones, go listen to that song like right away. There's just so much to talk about on this album that it's hard to really know where to start. Something I really enjoy about this, I think this is on the D side. It's kind of hard to see, but it's like a really, really, really dark purple. See if I can get it on there a little bit. But the vocals are really interesting. You know, it has like your normal lower growl, but like very low in the mix, very tonally low kind of stays pretty low the whole time. But in the background, there's like almost constantly these like whispers of I don't know if they're repeated vocals or if they're independent vocals because there's not a whole lot of information um, on the songs themselves. Here, I'll show some of the booklet here. It comes with an album-size booklet, but it does have lyrics. But you know, take the lyrics for what you want. Oh yeah, another thing I want to talk about is definitely the drums on this album. They really bring it all together. I really enjoy the production on the drums. I don't think I would say they sound very good, but if you have like a really good like stereo or headphones, it really brings the life out of them. But if you're kind of just, you know, casually listening, they kind of sound a little, you know, pitter pattery, which I don't mind. But if you have like good hardware, it really improves your listening experience. But yeah, there's a ton of like crazy samples on this album. There's a there's literally a song towards the end of the album that's like a 6 or 7 minute monologue about the number 666. It's hard to say if they're like really serious or if they're like taking themselves not too seriously. It's really hard to tell. There's something like really sinister about that where it's like it rides the line of almost being goofy and dark, or like I don't know. There's just something about that where it hits me different. But yeah, I could talk for probably about 2 hours on this album. I could bust it down song by song. I've studied this album to death, but I'll just leave it at that. Go check out Antediluvian with the Divine Punishment. And this last one I saved for last because I have a lot to say about this album. So, in my opinion, this is probably the best metal album of the 2020s so far. This is definitely up there in the all-time great pantheon albums. In my all-time of, you know, great singular works that will forever hold the test of time. I've had it in my hands long enough. I've listened to it enough to really be confident about that. Sometimes I'll get burnt out on an album after I think it's, you know, the bee's knees. This is not that. This is the real deal. This is Eternity of Shaug by Esok Trillium. Here's our logo. So, I don't really know where to begin on this. This is one of those, like, point of no return albums. I've talked about Esok Trillium on this channel before. I think I talked about Pandemorphium and Inhuma, and that's when the hiatus happened. And then we had the Telluric Ashes of the Over the Memorial Gods, and we had Requiem for the Serpent Telepath, and this one was right before Serpent, and now we have a Consecration of Spiritus Flesh, or whatever it's called. But we'll get to that one later, but we'll talk about this one now. We heard the beginnings of what this guy was really capable of at the end of Inhuma, the album that I think canonically was written before the Telluric Ashes, but they came out like flip-flopped. Could be wrong about that, but I thought I heard that somewhere. There's so many things going on in this album, I don't even know really where to start. It's all one guy. All of the instrumentation is like 10 out of 10. You know, technique, production, placement, just, it's an embarrassment of riches on what one man is able to do with so many instruments. You know, he does all kinds of other wacky instruments on here too. I don't know if there's a list in this album. Yeah, he's got the synths, violins, piano, cantel. There's just a bunch of other stuff going on. It's borderline symphonic, but I don't. It's hard to call it symphonic black metal because it's not really like it's not given to you in like a package of a symphonic black metal album. It has like, it'll have a moment where it's like super brutal. It's going freaking 300 BPM, and then it'll kind of break into like, more symphonic, I guess. And then you'll have moments where it's working together, where you'll have, strings or horns at the front of the album, but the drums in the back are still going freaking insane. The third song, it's called the second passage, but it's the third song because the first song doesn't have a passage name. But in my opinion, that is the best song of the 2020s. Definitely the best song he's ever made. It has so much going on. It has so many impressive moments. It's multifaceted. It's progressive. It has just... I don't know how someone would come up with things like this. Every song is super catchy. It has its own identity. It just blows my mind how we got here from, just a year or two ago when he made Pandemorphium, and then kind of just out of nowhere bust this thing out and just wrecks my mind. I honestly can't fathom how he could ever top this, and it holds very high regard to me. This is definitely like top 10 of all time. I don't think I've showed the vinyl color yet. But yeah, I've talked a little bit about this band in the past. It is just one dude. I got the orange red, of course. I do appreciate the works after this. I think this is just my ideal meshing of all of his ideas. There's so much going on. It's almost like a singular idea built into all of these absolutely insane compositions. And I could talk for another probably 2 hours just about this, but I don't want to bore you too much. It should be up there with the other like hallmark metal albums of like all time. That's how highly I think of this. It should be, I don't know if I want to say mainstream, but that's how much talent, that's how much effort, that's how much belief I have in this project, and I can't wait to see where it goes in the future. But yeah, that was my album of 2020, and for many years to come. I don't know what will be able to top it. There is the new Thy Darkened Shade coming out next year, which I'm obviously mega excited about. But yeah, I'm going to cut that there. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much. Hopefully you'll go listen to some of this. This is all mandatory listening. I know some of it I say is and isn't, but all 5 of these are mandatory listening. Go check out at least one song. I'll leave them in the description. Go support these bands. I'll be making videos more actively now. I do have the drive to do it. So hopefully you stick around, and I'll see you next time.